Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Citizen of the World. As you know, we are, all of us, the residents of a swiftly shrinking globe, where what was once local is fast becoming global, and our decisions and opinions resonate well beyond our own borders. I thank you for joining me, Al Zucaro, from the epicenter of the Western Hemisphere, Boca Raton, Florida, here in sunny South Florida, for a pointed look at politics, immigration, culture, and what it means to be a citizen of the world. Well, I find myself just getting back from a very interesting and enlightening trip. I'm going to speak today on the three general topics. We're going to talk about immigration and economic development, as we usually do. We're going to talk about culture and education as a precursor to trade. And finally, we're going to talk about Boca Raton as the center of activity, both educationally and by commerce, here in sunny South Florida. I'm going to start by just giving you a little bit of an overview of a trip that I just took with my wife. We went to the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. My first experience to Eastern European countries, and an incredibly enlightening and educational trip for me. Many of us, myself included, have traveled to Western Europe on a regular basis. The focus on Western Europe is always to talk and look west. You talk and you hear about the influences of Western Europe and the United States, the cross-culture, the cross-trade, and the tourism between Western Europe and the United States. I must suggest to you that Eastern Europe was a completely different experience for me. While there, the majority of people talked about not a Western perspective, but an Eastern perspective. They looked to Russia and the influences of the Russian states and the Scandinavian states on their waterways, on their trade lines, and on their cultural experiences. Over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to report on my experiences in each of those individual countries. We're going to talk about, today we will talk about Estonia and its capital city of Tallinn. Next week we will talk about Riga and in the country of Latvia, and finally we will talk about Vilnius in the country of Lithuania. I'm going to bring some of that forward on an individual show basis because there's just a whole lot to report. Today, on the issue of immigration and economic development, I want to talk about Tallinn, Estonia. And I brought some materials back, way too much for me to talk about on the air in such a short period of time, but I am going to make reference to Tallinn. I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of Estonia, its culture, and bring to you the notion that this is a charmingly medieval or amazingly modern city. It's actually a tale of two cities. Tallinn, of all of the three capitals for the three Baltic states, is the most well-preserved. It's the smallest. It has the entire historical medieval wall almost intact around the entire city. Its old town is charming. It's filled with culture, filled with music and dance and opera, and it is really a very interesting place to visit. The most surprising element that I found there is that it is a city of festivals, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. They do festivals on a year-round basis, and I want to start first with the history of these countries. These countries date back into the 11th century and before. The most relevant history, however, should be located between the eras of 1920 to the current day. In the 1920s, Estonia was actually an independent state. In the 1940s, the Red Armies occupied and annexed Estonia into the USSR. The reason for that is the Russian Federation, or the United Soviet Socialist Republic, did not have any seaports for trade on their western borders. So they expelled the Germans from Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, and used the seaports along the Baltic Sea for purposes of trade to the rest of the world. The Russians have a tremendous influence on these three countries as it's still, or today, in modern day, today, Russia is a major market for products that come in and out of the ports of Estonia and the other two Baltic states. Having a great deal of interest and commerce connecting those three states east to west, almost as a crossroads of the world. The Soviet occupation actually lasted from 1945 to 1991. And in 1991, actually in 1987 and 1988, an event took place. It was called the Singing Revolution, where large-scale protests against Moscow ruled in the form of traditional massed singing events in all three of the Baltic states, leading to Estonia declaring its independence on August 20th in calendar year 1991. And over the next short period of time, actually a 2-year period of time, the Russians withdrew their forces, withdrew their influences, and today now, 20 years later, Estonia and Latvia and Lithuania are experiencing their independence. My focus today is going to be on Estonia in a little while, but it leads me to tell you that the three Baltic states are now members of the European Union, and they are members of NATO. And Estonia has become the 17th member of the Eurozone. Now, that leads me to an issue with regards to immigration and economic development. As a member of the European Union, there is no visa requirement for people from the United States to visit Estonia, and there is no visa requirement for people from Estonia to visit the United States. They fall under the banner of Visa Waiver Program. Now, let me talk about a visa waiver. Let's first talk about what a visa is, and then we'll talk about a visa waiver. A visa for a non-immigrant is a temporary admission into the United States for some purpose. Most people come in on visitor's visas. Visitor's visas are generally categorized under the B of the alphabet soup of visas, the B1 for business for visitors for business, and B2 visitors for pleasure. Well, through various treaties, etc., there are approximately 35 countries in the world that enjoy visa waiver status. A visa waiver allows nationals from those countries that meet certain criterias to be able to travel across the borders from their country into the United States without having to go to an embassy and acquire a visa first to make that trip. They are allowed to enter individuals are allowed to enter the United States for business and pleasure purposes for up to a 90-day period of time. And at the end of that 90-day period of time, under the law, they have no ability to remain here and must leave the United States or go out of status. In some cases, and only in some cases, if a person who enters the country on a visa waiver marries an American citizen, they may, and I stress the word may, be able to adjust their status here to conditional permanent resident, but that's a story for another day on another point of view. Today, I just want to focus on the notion of visa waivers. There are 35 countries around the world that are allowed to do that. And if you'll give me a second, I will try and list some of them. Along with Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, there is Andorra, Hungary, New Zealand, Australia, Iceland, Norway, Austria, Ireland, Portugal, Belgium, Italy, San Remo, Brunei, Japan, Singapore, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Denmark, Liechtenstein, Slovenia, South Korea, Finland, Luxembourg, Spain, France, Malta, Sweden, Germany, Monaco, Switzerland, Greece, the Netherlands, and the United Kingdom. So if you are a national from any one of those countries and you want to enter the United States for a visit of a short duration, up to 90 days, you can do that without having to go to an American embassy. All other countries and any other purpose even for people from those nations who want to come into the United States, would have to have a direct face-to-face interview at an American consulate for purposes of allowing the Foreign Service officer to make a determination that you are coming for a temporary purpose and that you have reason to return to your home country. As an aside to this little observation, I want to suggest to you that today in our society we read all about undocumented and illegal aliens, and most of that is concentrated on focusing to the southern border of the United States and people crossing the border for work purposes. I want to suggest to you that many, if not most, I'll just say many, of the people that are in this country who entered legally and have overstayed their visas are people that have come from other countries with visas and simply overstayed, because up until recently, up until the last few years actually, there was no effective mechanism of tracking when a person who entered the United States vis-a-vis a legitimate visa or a legal visa left. Referring back to 9/11, all of the terrorists that caused the 9/11 incident entered the country legally with appropriate visas. The majority of them, I believe, were student visas, and there was no mechanism that highlighted or pointed out to our authorities that they overstayed their visas and became out of status, and they were free to then roam the United States and do the dastardly deeds that they did on 9/11. But it's not, the amount of undocumented and illegal aliens in this country are not solely the migrant populations that come across the border. Many of them come through our embassies, are granted visas, come here and simply overstay. But just that's my item for the moment, to remind everybody that in fact I am an attorney, and my area of interest in law is in immigration law. And I want to take a moment to highlight there is an event or an audio seminar being hosted by the American Immigration Lawyers Association on Thursday, July 28th, here in 2011, for consular processing, dealing with ESTA requirements, that's tourist requirements, and the visa waiver program for any of you who might want to listen in on that. And let me see if I can get you a website to check in to participate in that. My recommendation is that you go to conferences, CONFERENCES, at AILA.org. There's a phone number also, 202-507-7644. You'll know more about visa waivers than you'll care to know, but the fact of the matter is I'm just trying to make you aware that programs do exist to short-circuit the process for foreign nationals to come into the United States and participate. Moving on, I'd like to remind everybody to take a quick look at alzucaro.com/COTW. That would be www.alzucaro.com/COTW, standing for Citizens of the World, and read some of the articles that I publish there and some of the articles that I reprint for purposes of interest. I'd also like to point you to a new endeavor that I will be entering into. I'm joining forces with an international tax attorney. His name is Richard Lehman, Lehman, and I refer you to www.unitedstatestaxation.com. Richard has been practicing taxation law for 40 years now and has become quite the specialist, or quite the expert, on international tax concerns for foreign nationals who are attempting to relocate either assets or themselves into the United States. He and I will be starting a new venture. It'll be called United States Taxation and Immigration Law Firm, and we will be focused on high-end immigration initiatives where individuals are looking to relocate here, but with a major caveat. The major caveat is if you are an individual with assets trying to relocate into the United States, you must first analyze the tax consequence for fear that you will cause irreparable harm and lots of money if you don't handle the tax consequences first. That's the focus of the law firm. That's its mission statement. Websites will be up in the next few weeks. I'll introduce it as soon as it is completed. Finally, I'd like to remind you that part of that refers us back to Palm Beach Regional Center, which is www.palmbeachregionalcenter.com, and that website takes you to the EB-5, the Employment-Based Category 5 visas that allow foreign nationals to enter the United States on a conditional basis if they make investments in the United States, and those investments are responsible for creating jobs for employable U.S. workers, 10 jobs per investor. Okay. Now, having done I guess that's the solicitation of the week, I'd like to go back on to the issue of culture and education as a precursor to economic development. And again, I want to talk about Estonia. I have to tell you, I was so impressed by the city of Tallinn and the entire countryside of Estonia. It is, this year, calendar year 2011, Estonia shares with the city of Turku, Finland, the title of the European Capital for Culture in 2011. Well, a deserved title. When you do some research on Estonia, you find that they are a location for culture of great significance. They do festivals on almost a weekly, if not daily basis, small festivals and large festivals alike. They bring hundreds of thousands of people in for festivals that revolve around youth and revolve around their country's history. I was very impressed. We brought back all of the materials. I'd like to point out some of the festivals that were there. For instance, July 1st to July 3rd of this year, they did a youth song and dance celebration. It was really impressive to see the amphitheater that holds tens of thousands of people that's been developed specifically to host many of their festivals. There was the Estonian Song and Dance Celebration. My favorite is the International Organ Music Festival. We went to one location, actually it was in the city of Riga, where we listened to an hour's worth of organ music being played on an organ that had 6,300 plus pipes to it. An incredible experience. I point to all of this out because I am a firm believer that culture has to precede commerce. And with that said, I want to begin to introduce what I am going to work on over the next couple of weeks. Moving into a little bit of the next segment, I'm interested in now bringing forward I've talked in the past about the Center for the Arts. I've talked about the Festival of the Arts that takes place in March every year. This upcoming year, it will be March 8th to March 17th. Excuse me, folks. March 8th to March 17th. Well, the city of Tallinn presents a very distinct opportunity because the Center for the Arts wants to expand to do items or more events on a monthly basis. The chairman of the board, my wife Yvonne, and the board of directors, where I am not a member, are moving in the direction of creating 2 to 3 events on a monthly basis over an 8-month period of time leading up to the March final major event. Well, I'm looking at the possibility of presenting to the board and presenting to the city of Boca Raton under the notion that we are the epicenter of the Western Hemisphere, the idea of Boca Raton emulating and working with the city of Tallinn and in the future, when I talk about this next time, the city of Riga, for purposes of a sister city international relationship, and bring some of those established festivals to Boca Raton here, and with the objective of creating Boca Raton as the city of festivals for Palm Beach County. Very exciting. I'll keep you appraised of this as we go on. And we are in the process of now beginning, my wife and I are in the process of now beginning to look at putting together a group of influential private sector people to travel back to Tallinn for purposes of identifying the opportunities that can be uncovered and developed, and bring them back here, again, with a private sector driven perspective, and create for the city of Boca Raton almost a gift of an international presence without the city having to participate, except to put its best foot forward and invite diplomats from around the world to visit. In next week's show, I will be talking about Riga, Latvia, because Riga, Latvia is going to be the European Capital of Culture in 2014. And for sure, between now and 2014, we will be traveling back there to make sure that we can participate in those cultural experiences during that year. To aid us, we'll be using some of our sponsors. Want to point out that the show is brought to you in part by Fugazi International Travel. You can find them at www.fugazitravel.com, and by Al Zucaro, my law firm, www.alzucaro.com. Now, having said all of that, I want to, and finally, to the Sister Cities comment that I made earlier, I point you to their website. Very incredible. On their mission statement, they say to promote peace through mutual respect, understanding, and cooperation, one individual, one community at a time. You can find them at www.sistercitiesinternational.com, and I engage you to visit that website and participate. To follow up on my fireworks in politics, I actually am going to take the liberty today to have a commentary. 2 weeks away from South Florida, 2 weeks without hearing a 24-hour-a-day news cycle, 2 weeks without being inundated with useless facts about useless topics that seem to go on and on forever. How wonderful that was. Leaving the blow-by-blow reporting on the same old, R's versus D's, presidents versus Congress, debt ceiling, blah, 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 only to return to the same old. For crying out loud, Washington, D.C., can't you get this damn thing done? Kudos to the House leadership for taking on this fight, but there is no doubt that some sort of revenue increases are necessary. Bend, but do not break. KO to the presidents and the Democrats for not putting together a proposal in writing in front of the American people to let us debate it and find a solution. Kudos to the Congressional Budget Office for telling the president that they cannot score a speech. Dear Mr. President, we know you can deliver a canned speech, but can you deliver a solution? For crying out loud, get this done. And finally, I'm going to close with my normal closing, now that I've gotten off my soapbox. We all are residents of a swiftly shrinking globe, where what was once local is fast becoming global, and our decisions and opinions resonate well beyond our own borders. Please join me again every week from the epicenter of the Western Hemisphere, here in Boca Raton, Florida, for a pointed look at politics, immigration, culture, and what it means to be a citizen of the world. Thank you and good night.